"Let's just stay friends," she said sweetly. I nodded. Weeks later, she saw my photos. Same trip, same view, just a different hand holding mine. Suddenly, friends didn't feel so simple anymore. Sometimes the worst betrayals come wrapped in gentle words from someone you thought you knew completely. I met Madison during our final year at University of Texas, where I was finishing my civil engineering degree, and she was deep into her pastry arts program, with dreams that glowed brighter than the Austin skyline. She had this amazing energy when she talked about opening her own bakery, hands moving expressively as she described elaborate celebration cakes and farm-to-table dinner parties she would create someday. I was completely mesmerized by her passion and drive, the way she could turn a basic grocery run into a treasure hunt for the perfect ingredients. We began dating that spring, and by graduation, we were already talking about building something real together. Her culinary empire and my steady engineering career, creating the perfect foundation for our future. After college, we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in central Austin, and I gladly took on most of the bills, while Madison worked to establish herself in the competitive food scene. Her freelance baking work was unpredictable at best, bringing in maybe $800 some months and $2,400 others, depending on wedding seasons and corporate events. Meanwhile, she was constantly investing in professional development, $650 workshops with celebrity chefs, $300 knife sets that were supposedly game changers, $450 photography sessions to build her portfolio. I covered our $1,850 monthly rent, utilities averaging $240, groceries that often hit $600 because she insisted on premium ingredients for her recipe testing, and most of our entertainment expenses. "Once my business really takes off," she would say, curled up against me after another long day of client meetings, "we'll both benefit from this investment. We'll finally be able to plan our wedding properly." I believed her completely, watching her work 12-hour days perfecting her signature dishes and building relationships with venue coordinators across the city. Supporting her dreams felt like supporting our dreams, and I was proud to be the stable foundation she could build upon. For 3 years, I never questioned the arrangement because I genuinely thought we were partners working toward the same goal, just from different angles. During those early years, Madison would often express gratitude for my support, telling me how much it meant to have someone who believed in her vision when so many people had dismissed pastry arts as just a hobby. She would surprise me with elaborate home-cooked meals using techniques she had learned in her workshops, and we would spend evenings planning the restaurant empire we would build together someday. "You'll handle all the business side, permits and contracts and all that engineering precision stuff, while I focus on creating amazing experiences for people." It felt like we were building something meaningful, a partnership where my analytical mind complemented her creative spirit perfectly. I loved how she would ask my opinion on menu designs and pricing strategies, making me feel like a genuine collaborator rather than just a financial backer. Looking back, I realized those moments of inclusion were becoming rarer as her business gained traction, but at the time, I attributed her growing independence to natural confidence rather than emotional distance. By our 4th year together, Madison's baking business was finally gaining real momentum, and I wanted to celebrate our progress with something spectacular. I had been secretly saving for months, skipping lunches and cutting back on my own hobbies to afford what I thought would be the perfect surprise, a $4,200 booking at an exclusive mountain lodge in Vail, Colorado. The Alpine Summit Resort was everything we had fantasized about since college. Private chef experiences, guided wilderness photography tours, couples cooking classes with a James Beard Award winner, and adventure activities like rock climbing and whitewater rafting. The booking was completely non-refundable, requiring full payment up front, but I did not hesitate because I knew how much Madison had been talking about needing a real vacation after years of grinding to establish her reputation. 2 weeks of pure adventure, I told her excitedly when I revealed the surprise, showing her the confirmation email and detailed itinerary I had spent hours researching. No clients, no deadlines, just us exploring somewhere completely new together. Her reaction was enthusiastic, but somehow felt muted, like she was performing excitement rather than feeling it genuinely. Around the same time I booked our retreat, Madison's social calendar exploded with what she called industry networking opportunities. Suddenly, she was attending dinner events 3 or 4 nights a week, always dressed immaculately and carrying business cards she had recently had redesigned with a more sophisticated logo. The Austin food scene is all about relationships, she would explain, rushing out the door at 6:30 in the evening and often not returning until well past midnight. These connections are going to be crucial for landing the big corporate contracts. I supported her networking efforts completely, understanding that relationship building was essential in her industry, but I started noticing subtle changes in her behavior that made me vaguely uncomfortable. She became protective of her phone, angling it away when texting and taking calls in the other room with the door closed. Her Instagram posts shifted from showcasing her food creations to inspirational quotes about embracing change and following your authentic path, mixed with photos from upscale restaurants I had never heard of. The name Tyler started appearing in her conversations with increasing frequency, always in the context of professional collaboration. Tyler thinks I should expand into food truck festivals, she mentioned casually, or Tyler suggested this amazing supplier for organic vegetables. When I asked about him, she described Tyler as a food blogger and travel writer who documented extreme culinary experiences around the world. Underground supper clubs in Tokyo, street food adventures in Bangkok, pop-up restaurants in converted shipping containers. He's helping me think bigger about my brand, she would say, eyes lighting up in a way that made something cold settle in my stomach. He says I'm playing it too safe with traditional catering. Tyler apparently traveled constantly for his blog, living out of hotels and Airbnbs, funding his adventures through sponsorship deals with outdoor gear companies and travel websites. The more she talked about his lifestyle, the more our quiet evenings at home seemed to bore her, and the more my steady engineering career appeared to represent everything she was growing tired of. Our physical connection started cooling around this time, though Madison attributed it to exhaustion from her expanding business and the stress of managing multiple high-profile events. She would come home from her networking dinners energized and chatty, but when I tried to connect intimately, she would claim she was too wired to relax or needed to respond to urgent client emails. Once things calmed down a bit, she would promise, but things never seemed to calm down. Instead, her schedule became even more packed with mysterious meetings and creative collaborations that she described in vague terms. When I would ask specific questions about her projects, she would get defensive and accuse me of not trusting her professional judgment. "You don't understand the creative process," she would say with frustration. "Everything doesn't have to be planned and scheduled like one of your construction projects." I started feeling like I was living with a stranger who happened to share my bed, someone whose dreams had grown beyond what our relationship could contain. The end came on a Tuesday evening at Antonio's, the neighborhood steakhouse where we had celebrated every anniversary and milestone for the past 4 years. I thought we were having a regular dinner, maybe finally reconnecting after weeks of her being constantly distracted and emotionally distant. Instead, Madison had chosen our familiar corner booth as the setting for what felt like a carefully rehearsed performance. She ordered the salmon she always got, made small talk about her latest catering event, then took a deep breath and delivered the words that shattered everything I thought I knew about our relationship. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about where we're heading," she began, her voice gentle but determined. "I think we need to transition to being friends." The words hit me like a physical blow, but she continued with that same calm sweetness as if she were discussing weekend plans rather than dismantling 4 years of shared dreams. "We've grown into different people with completely different goals, and I don't think it's fair to either of us to keep pretending we want the same things." I sat there in stunned silence while she explained how she developed feelings for Tyler, describing their connection as something that just happened naturally through their professional collaboration. Tyler lives for adventure and spontaneity, while you're so focused on security and predictable routines. We're just fundamentally incompatible. She painted me as someone who had become too comfortable with the status quo, too resistant to change, too conventional for her evolving artistic vision. "You're an amazing person," she assured me, "but you want to build a traditional life with mortgages and retirement planning, while I need someone who encourages me to take creative risks and explore new possibilities." The casual way she dismissed everything we had built together, reducing my steady support to boring predictability, made my chest tight with a combination of hurt and growing anger. What made the conversation even more devastating was her complete lack of genuine remorse about the emotional affairs she had been conducting behind my back. "I know this probably feels like a betrayal," she acknowledged with the kind of practiced sympathy you would offer a coworker whose lunch got stolen from the office refrigerator, "but I never intended for things to develop this way with Tyler. Sometimes you just meet someone who changes your entire perspective on what you want from life." She actually seemed proud of her emotional awakening, as if falling for someone else while in a committed relationship was some kind of spiritual growth rather than a fundamental breach of trust. "I hope you can understand that this isn't really about you," she continued, apparently believing this would somehow soften the blow. "It's about me finally being honest about what I need to feel fulfilled and authentic." Her ability to reframe cheating as self-discovery was almost impressive in its audacity. Then came the moment that revealed her true expectations about our dynamic, delivered with the same manipulative sweetness that had characterized the entire conversation. "I was actually hoping we could still do the Colorado trip together," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand like we were discussing a casual weekend getaway rather than a $4,200 vacation I had booked for my girlfriend who just dumped me for another man. "As friends, obviously, I think it could be really healing for both of us. And honestly, I could really use some time away from everything to clear my head and figure out next steps with Tyler." The sheer audacity of expecting me to fund her emotional reset vacation, where she would presumably spend 2 weeks processing her feelings for her new lover, while I played the role of supportive friend, finally snapped something inside me. Her casual assumption that I would continue providing financial support even after she discarded our romantic relationship showed exactly how she had been viewing me all along. Not as a partner, but as a resource to be managed and maintained regardless of her personal choices. I maintained complete composure throughout that devastating dinner conversation, nodding calmly and even picking up the check one final time as she outlined her vision of our new friendship. "I understand," I told her quietly, my voice steady despite the emotional earthquake happening inside my chest. "Thanks for being honest about your feelings." She seemed almost disappointed by my measured response, probably expecting tears or desperate pleas for reconciliation that would validate the dramatic narrative she had constructed about outgrowing our relationship. Instead, I drove us home in silence while she chatted nervously about her upcoming projects, apparently relieved that I was taking the breakup so well. The moment we stepped into our apartment, I began the most methodical and thorough exit of my life, moving with the same systematic precision I applied to structural engineering projects. I packed everything I owned that very night while Madison took a long bath, presumably washing away the stress of dismantling our 4-year relationship. 2 suitcases of clothes, my laptop and work equipment, personal documents, the camping gear I had accumulated but rarely used during our relationship, and a few books that had sentimental value. I left behind anything we had purchased together, including furniture I had paid for, because I wanted a complete clean break with no lingering financial entanglements. By midnight, I was texting my work buddy Chris, who had offered his guest room countless times when Madison and I had minor arguments. "Emergency crash pad needed. I'll explain tomorrow, but I need somewhere to stay starting tonight." Chris responded within minutes with his address and a spare key location. No questions asked. The next morning, I called in my accumulated vacation time, 3 weeks I had been saving for our Colorado retreat, and disappeared completely from my normal routine. I informed my engineering firm that I was taking personal leave for family reasons, turned off my phone except for work emergencies, and began the process of rebuilding my identity as a single person. The first week was brutal, oscillating between numbness and waves of grief that would hit unexpectedly when I was brushing my teeth or making coffee.
But by the second week, something shifted.
I rediscovered passions I had abandoned during our relationship, starting with wilderness photography that had fascinated me in college, but got pushed aside when Madison's career demands consumed all our free time. I bought a decent digital single-lens reflex camera and spent entire days exploring Texas Hill country landscapes, capturing sunrise shots at Enchanted Rock and sunset silhouettes at Mount Bonnell. The mechanical precision of adjusting aperture settings and composition helped quiet my racing thoughts, while the physical challenge of reaching remote viewpoints reminded me that I was capable of more adventure than Madison had given me credit for. I also dusted off my mountain bike, which had been gathering cobwebs in our storage unit for 2 years, and started exploring trail systems around Austin and the surrounding areas. The solitude felt therapeutic rather than lonely, giving me space to process the relationship without the constant noise of other people's opinions and advice. During this period of voluntary isolation, I handled all our shared financial obligations with characteristic thoroughness, canceling utilities, transferring the apartment lease entirely to Madison's name, and closing our joint savings account that contained $3,200 we had been accumulating for wedding expenses. I divided the money proportionally based on our contributions. She got $850, I kept the remaining $2,350, and transferred her portion with a simple note, "For your business expenses. Take care." I maintained absolute no contact, despite increasingly frequent texts from mutual friends asking where I disappeared to and whether I was okay. The discipline required to ignore Madison's attempts to reach out felt like emotional strength training, each unanswered message building my resolve to move forward independently. The unexpected bright spot in this healing process was meeting Emma during my 3rd week of exploring Texas wilderness areas. I was setting up shots at Lake Travis during golden hour when I noticed a park ranger approaching, probably checking that I had proper permits for commercial photography. "Just personal hobby stuff," I called out, expecting a routine interaction about park regulations. Instead, Emma turned out to be genuinely interested in my photography technique and shared stories about the best hidden spots for landscape shots within the park system. She had this easy confidence and knowledge about outdoor recreation that I found immediately attractive. Plus, she appreciated my methodical approach to capturing the perfect shot, rather than seeing it as obsessive planning like Madison had. While I was rediscovering myself through wilderness photography and building a genuine connection with Emma, Madison's grand romantic adventure was imploding spectacularly. According to mutual friends who could not resist sharing updates despite my requests for radio silence, Tyler's enthusiasm for their relationship evaporated almost immediately once the thrill of their secret affair disappeared into mundane reality. Apparently, the food blogger who had swept Madison off her feet with promises of spontaneous adventures and creative collaboration turned out to be far more interested in the chase than the actual relationship. Within 3 weeks of our breakup, Tyler was already posting Instagram stories from solo trips to Portland and Seattle, conspicuously absent of any mentions of Madison or their supposed professional partnerships. The crushing irony was that Madison had sacrificed her carefully built baking business for someone who viewed her as a temporary distraction rather than a genuine creative partner. She had reduced her client commitments significantly during those final months of our relationship, turning down several high-profile corporate events to spend more time with Tyler and focus on their supposed collaborative projects. But once Tyler moved on to his next conquest, Madison found herself scrambling to rebuild professional relationships she had neglected and trying to book events during Austin's slower summer season when most companies avoid large gatherings due to the brutal heat. Her social media presence, which had always been professionally curated to showcase her culinary expertise, devolved into a chaotic mix of inspirational quotes about resilience and thinly veiled personal drama that made potential clients uncomfortable. Posts that used to feature elegant plated dishes and behind-the-scenes glimpses of high-end events were replaced with rambling captions about fake people and learning who your real friends are. The Austin culinary scene is surprisingly small and interconnected, and word travels fast when someone starts airing personal grievances on their business accounts. Several high-profile clients quietly canceled their contracts, citing concerns about professionalism and reliability. The financial reality of her situation became increasingly desperate as summer progressed, and her income stream dried up to a trickle. Without my steady contribution to her living expenses, Madison was facing the full weight of Austin's cost of living on an income that had never been sufficient to support her lifestyle independently. Her $1,850 monthly rent alone consumed most of her unpredictable earnings, leaving little room for the professional development expenses and premium ingredients that had been essential to maintaining her competitive edge in the luxury catering market. This is when the first wave of contact attempts began, filtering through our mutual friends and family members with increasing frequency and desperation. My college roommate Ben called to report that Madison had reached out asking for my new phone number, claiming she needed to discuss important financial matters related to our shared lease. My sister mentioned receiving a Facebook message from Madison asking if I was okay and expressing concern that I had disappeared so completely. Even my mom got a carefully crafted email about how much Madison missed our family dinners and hoped we could all stay connected despite the changes in our relationship. The messages that eventually reached me through various channels revealed a pattern of escalating panic mixed with stubborn entitlement. She alternated between tearful apologies for how things ended and angry demands that I honor our friendship by taking me on the Colorado retreat as originally planned. "We were together for 4 years. That has to count for something. You can't just pretend I don't exist after everything we shared," one forwarded message read. Another message tried a different approach. "I know you're hurt, but I thought you were more mature than this. The trip was supposed to be about us celebrating my career success together, and that hasn't changed just because we're friends now instead of dating." The most revealing message came through Chris, who had somehow ended up on Madison's radar as my current roommate. She tracked him down through my engineering firm's employee directory and sent a long, rambling email about how I was making a terrible mistake by throwing away our friendship over pride. She claimed that Tyler had been emotionally manipulative and that she was beginning to realize that she had made an error in judgment, but she still maintained that our romantic relationship had run its natural course. "We and Madison built something real together," she wrote to Chris, as if he were some kind of relationship mediator. "I just need him to see past his hurt feelings and remember what we meant to each other. The Colorado retreat could be exactly what we both need to heal and move forward as friends." Madison's contact attempts escalated dramatically when she discovered through Instagram stalking that I was spending time with Emma, whose park ranger account featured several photos from our weekend camping trips and desert photography excursions. The realization that I was not sitting alone in my apartment mourning our relationship apparently triggered something primal in her, transforming her previous attempts at friendly reconciliation into desperate territorial behavior. She started leaving voicemails on my work phone, which she had somehow obtained from the engineering firm's main directory, alternating between sobbing apologies and angry accusations about how quickly I had replaced her with someone else. When those attempts failed to provoke any response, she made the catastrophic decision to confront me directly at my workplace. I was reviewing structural blueprints for a downtown office complex renovation when our receptionist called to inform me that someone named Madison was in the main lobby requesting to speak with me about an urgent personal matter. My stomach dropped as I realized she had tracked me down to my professional environment, violating the boundary between our ended relationship and my career in a way that felt both desperate and manipulative. I found her in the building's marble-floored lobby, dressed in the kind of carefully coordinated outfit she used to wear for important client meetings, but her composed appearance could not hide the manic energy radiating from her posture. "Thank God," she said, rushing toward me with tears already forming in her eyes. "I've been trying to reach you for weeks. We need to talk about what's happening between us." The fact that she had ambushed me at work, surrounded by colleagues and visitors, showed how completely her judgment had deteriorated under the pressure of losing both her romantic backup plan and her financial safety net. "Madison, this isn't appropriate," I said quietly, acutely aware that several coworkers were pretending not to stare while she continued her emotional appeal. "We can't do this here." But she was already launching into a rehearsed speech about second chances and how we owed it to our shared history to at least try being friends. "4 years doesn't just disappear because you're angry with me," she said, her voice rising with each word. "I made mistakes, but so did you. You gave up on us without even fighting for what we had." The irony of her accusing me of giving up when she had literally chosen another man was apparently lost on her. When I calmly refused to engage in a relationship discussion at my workplace and suggested she should focus on rebuilding her own life, Madison's carefully maintained facade cracked completely. "This is about that park ranger girl, isn't it?" she demanded, her voice echoing off the lobby's high ceiling. "You're destroying your life by choosing some random outdoors girl over someone who actually knows you and understands your goals." The possessive fury in her tone revealed exactly how she had been processing my ability to move forward independently, interpreting my healing as a personal betrayal rather than natural consequence of her choices. Building security approached when Madison's voice reached a pitch that was disturbing other visitors, but she continued her tirade even as they politely asked her to lower her voice or step outside. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life," she shouted, as security gently but firmly guided her to the exit. "That girl doesn't deserve the vacation I planned with you. She doesn't deserve any of this. You're ruining everything we built together for someone who barely knows you." The entitlement in her final words was staggering. She still considered our Colorado trip something she had planned, rather than a surprise I had saved for and booked entirely myself. The humiliating scene was witnessed by at least a dozen colleagues, including my project manager and several clients who happened to be visiting for project meetings. The professional embarrassment was acute, but what struck me most was how completely Madison had revealed her true character under pressure. This was not the charming, ambitious woman I had supported for 4 years, but someone whose sense of entitlement ran so deep that she would sabotage my professional reputation rather than accept that our relationship was permanently over. Word of the lobby incident spread quickly through our mutual social circle, finally exposing the manipulative behavior that I had been too close to recognize during our relationship. Friends who had initially sympathized with Madison's version of events, that we had simply grown apart and I was being unnecessarily harsh about maintaining no contact, suddenly understood why I had chosen to disappear completely rather than attempt the friendship she had proposed. The dramatic workplace confrontation became the final nail in the coffin of any remaining sympathy within our former shared community. 2 weeks after the lobby incident, I made a decision that felt both therapeutic and triumphant. I would use the Colorado Mountain Retreat booking for myself and Emma, transforming what was supposed to be a romantic getaway with my ex into an adventure with someone who genuinely appreciated both my thoughtful planning and spontaneous spirit. Emma was thrilled by the invitation, especially when I explained the full situation and made it clear that she should not feel pressured to fill anyone else's shoes. "I'd love to explore Colorado with you," she said simply. "And honestly, it sounds like you deserve to actually enjoy that trip with someone who wants to be there." Her straightforward enthusiasm was refreshing after months of Madison's complicated emotional manipulations. We departed from Austin Bergstrom International Airport on a bright Thursday morning, both excited about 2 weeks of wilderness photography, guided adventures, and the kind of genuine relaxation I had not experienced in years. Emma had taken vacation time from her park ranger position, and I was finally using the rest of my accumulated leave in a way that felt restorative rather than devastating. As we checked in for our flight to Denver, I felt lighter than I had since the breakup, anticipating mountain air and the freedom to explore without constantly managing someone else's emotional needs or financial expectations. But Madison apparently had been monitoring my social media activity and somehow discovered our travel plans through airline booking sites or mutual connections. As Emma and I approached our departure gate, I spotted a familiar figure near the boarding area, dressed in the expensive travel outfit she had bought for trips we had never taken together. My stomach dropped as I realized she had actually tracked us to the airport for one final desperate attempt at disruption.
"Wait," Madison called out, intercepting us before we could reach the gate agent. "Please, just give me 5 minutes to explain everything." She looked haggard despite her careful grooming, with dark circles under her eyes and a manic energy that made other travelers step away from our impromptu confrontation. Emma squeezed my hand supportively but did not interfere, recognizing that this moment required closure rather than avoidance. "Madison, you need to stop this," I said quietly, conscious of the public setting and other passengers who were starting to stare. "We'd been over. You made your choice, and I've made mine." But she launched into a frantic explanation about how Tyler had been manipulative and emotionally abusive, painting herself as a victim who had been deceived rather than someone who had actively chosen to end our relationship for another man. He made me believe you were holding me back," she said, tears streaming down her face. "He convinced me that what we had was ordinary and boring compared to what I could have with him. I was so stupid to listen." She begged me to reconsider our shared history, cataloging memories from our 4 years together as if they were evidence that we belonged together rather than reminders of what she discarded. "Remember when we talked about opening a restaurant together?" she pleaded. "Remember how we used to plan our whole future? That meant something real. You can't just throw it all away for someone you barely know." The desperation in her voice was genuine, but it was the desperation of someone who had lost her safety net rather than someone who genuinely realized she loved me. When I compassionately but firmly explained that our romantic chapter was permanently concluded, Madison's carefully maintained composure dissolved into a public breakdown that drew uncomfortable attention from gate agents and fellow travelers. "You're making a terrible mistake," she sobbed, her voice echoing through the terminal. "She doesn't know you like I do. She doesn't understand what you're capable of building together. You're going to regret this for the rest of your life." Several people from our former social circle happened to be traveling that day and witnessed the entire scene, later providing detailed accounts that circulated through Austin's interconnected social networks. As Emma and I boarded our flight hand in hand, leaving Madison's angry accusations and promises that I would regret my decision echoing through the terminal, I felt only liberation and excitement for the authentic partnership I was building with someone who genuinely valued my character. The mountain retreat that was supposed to heal my relationship with Madison instead became the foundation for something much better. 2 weeks of adventure with someone who appreciated my thoughtful planning as much as my willingness to explore new possibilities. Someone who chose to be there rather than someone I had had to convince to appreciate it. Emma and I hiked through alpine meadows filled with wildflowers, attended the couple's cooking class where we learned to make artisanal pasta from scratch, and spent evenings photographing mountain sunsets that painted the sky in shades of orange and purple I had never seen before. Every moment felt authentic and joyful, free from the undercurrent of resentment and manipulation that had characterized the final months with Madison. During one particularly memorable afternoon, while we were rock climbing at a scenic overlook, Emma asked me what I had learned from the whole experience with Madison. I thought about it for a long moment, adjusting my climbing harness and looking out at the vast Colorado wilderness stretching before us. I learned that supporting someone's dreams should never mean sacrificing your own worth, I said finally, and that real partnership means both people choosing to be there, not one person tolerating the relationship until something better comes along. Emma nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. It sounds like she saw you as a resource rather than a person." "Exactly," I agreed. "And I learned that when someone shows you who they really are, especially under pressure, you should believe them. Madison's reaction to losing her backup plan revealed more about her character than 4 years of carefully managed behavior ever did." We took hundreds of photos during those 2 weeks, documenting not just the stunning mountain landscapes, but also the genuine connection we were building. I posted several of my favorite shots on Instagram, carefully tagging locations and sharing captions about finding unexpected joy in places you thought would be painful. One photo in particular showed Emma and I at the summit of a challenging trail, hands clasped together with the Rocky Mountains spread out behind us in panoramic glory. The caption read, "Sometimes the best adventures are the ones you never planned. Grateful for new beginnings and genuine partnerships." The response to my Colorado posts was overwhelming. Friends and former colleagues congratulated me on moving forward so positively, and several people privately messaged to say they had always felt something was off about Madison's behavior, but had not wanted to interfere. According to those same mutual friends who love to share updates, Madison saw every single post. Each photo of Emma and I enjoying the vacation she had expected to manipulate me into funding for her apparently sent her into deeper spirals of regret and anger. She made several more desperate attempts to contact me through increasingly random channels, a LinkedIn message claiming she wanted to discuss professional networking opportunities, an email to my work address about supposed shared tax documents that needed attention, even a letter delivered to my parents' house asking them to intervene on my behalf. But I maintained my boundaries completely, recognizing that her distress was the natural consequence of her own choices rather than something I was responsible for fixing. Within 6 months, I heard through the social network grapevine that Madison had been forced to close her catering business entirely, unable to rebuild her client base after the public meltdowns and unprofessional social media behavior had destroyed her reputation. She had moved back in with her parents in a small town outside Austin, taking a regular job as a bakery assistant at a chain grocery store, the exact kind of conventional career path she had once claimed would crush her creative spirit. Tyler, the food blogger who had promised her adventure and creative collaboration, was then in a relationship with another aspiring culinary professional he had met during his travels, posting the same kind of inspirational content about authentic connections and creative partnerships that he had once shared with Madison. The karma was almost poetic. Madison had discarded a stable, supportive partnership for the illusion of something more exciting, only to discover that the person she chose valued her even less than she had valued me. She had lost her business, her reputation, her financial stability, and her romantic prospects, all because she could not appreciate what she had until it was permanently gone. As for me, Emma and I continued building something real and sustainable. We moved in together about a year after that Colorado trip, splitting expenses fairly based on our respective incomes and making decisions together as genuine partners. She encouraged my photography hobby, I supported her career advancement within the Park Service, and we both contributed equally to the relationship we were creating. Looking back on everything that happened with Madison, I realized the experience taught me invaluable lessons about recognizing my own worth and refusing to settle for one-sided partnerships. If I could offer advice to anyone in a similar situation, it would be this. Pay attention to how someone treats you when they think they have better options. That reveals their true character far more than how they act when they need your support. Do not let yourself become someone's backup plan or financial safety net. Real love means choosing someone actively and consistently, not tolerating them until something more exciting comes along. And finally, when someone shows you through their actions that they don't value you, believe them the first time and walk away with your dignity intact. The best revenge is not anger or spite, it's building a genuinely happy life with someone who chooses you every single day, while the person who discarded you faces the natural consequences of their own poor decisions. Madison wanted adventure and excitement without stability and commitment. She got exactly what she chose, and she has only herself to blame for how it turned out. Meanwhile, I found someone who values both the thoughtful planning I bring to our partnership and the spontaneous adventures we create together. Someone who sees supporting each other's dreams as a mutual responsibility rather than a unilateral obligation. That is the real happy ending, not because Madison suffered, but because I discovered what genuine partnership actually looks like and refused to settle for anything less ever again.